Welcome to another presentation at the East Trade Winds, a chapter of the World Referral Network, hosted by Bernie Franzgrote and Wayne Pratt. The presentation today is titled The Art of Branding, From Successes to Slip-Ups. Our guest is Rich Beyer from Rich Beyer Design. Rich Beyer has spent over 2 decades branding businesses in New York City and beyond. With a background as varied as his work, Rich brings a unique perspective to branding, drawing inspiration from his passion for photography, particularly classic cars, and his former career as a fitness professional. He's worked as a creative consultant for agencies like Saatchi and McCann Erickson, and has shared his comedic insights on stages across Manhattan. As a published author, Rich Beyer's book of business branding offers an engaging take on branding decisions. He's also co-written and co-produced the feature film The Networker.
I'm a brand designer. I work with businesses that come to me in all different stages of their development. So we could start with naming the company. If they have everything in place, but they don't know, we can start with that. From there, we'll come up with the logo. And the logo is one of the key pieces of branding, but a lot of people confuse the logo for the brand. And while the logo is an integral part of the brand, it's just a piece of the branding. And then from there comes the website. And after that, all the incidentals like business cards and things like that, so that when people hit the streets, they hit the streets as the 3 Ps, as a polished professional presence. And let's face it, we eat with our eyes. So when we see somebody that fits the role of what we expect, that it lends a comfort level to us. That all said, I put together a bit of a little presentation for you. And so you've probably heard the term brand story bandied about. Brand story is really what the people are saying about your business. So it's the narrative that is used to describe your business. So what I like to say is, who's driving that narrative? Is it you, or is it the people that are looking at bits and pieces about your business? So I always like to be in the driver's seat on that, and I'm sure most of you do too. So when we talk about branding, we talk about the tone of voice, if you will. And one of the ways that is done is, hang on a second. Once again, this is just quick aside of me, born and raised in Jersey as a good Jewish boy. This was me before the bar mitzvah. And once you become a bar mitzvah person, you are a man. So this was me after the bar mitzvah that evening. So anyway, we talk about tone of voice for brand, and that can be done in a number of different ways. Some companies have slogans. Nike, just do it. McDonald's, I'm loving it. Red Bull, it gives you wings because it gives you all kinds of jacked up caffeinated feelings and whatnot. Companies like Nike, truthfully, McDonald's, they don't, in my opinion, don't need a tagline because they're just so behemothly huge that everybody knows it just by seeing their logo. But that being said, so like I said, slogans are good because they communicate a lot of what the brand is all about. One of the ways that this is also done is because you're worth it, L'Oreal. So it really appeals to that self-esteem that, "Ooh, you're worth it. You're gonna pay extra for this because it's just that good." It's very clever, so good cat for a name. I thought that was a very good way of getting their message across. Remember Clairol? Does she or doesn't she? Only her hairdresser knows for sure. I thought that was a brilliant campaign. It talks about that it's such a fine product that no one else will know. Let's move on to something we all know a little bit more about. Old Spice. Remember Old Spice? In 2008, they did just a slight rebrand. And what they did was they took Old Spice, the original, and they gave it this tag that if your grandfather hadn't worn it, you wouldn't exist. So let's talk a little bit about some epic branding fails. Remember Braniff, the airline that was like the psychedelic airline? Well, at the time, they were running a campaign that touted that their upscale flying, their seats were upholstered in leather, and it was fly in leather. That was their campaign. Unfortunately, when that was translated into Spanish, it was translated as fly naked. So that really didn't work too well. Now, Coors, as we all know, it had a slogan at one point called "Turn it loose." Unfortunately, in Spanish, that was a colloquial term for having diarrhea. So that, again, didn't really work out too well for Coors. Now, Electrolux. Electrolux, I always think of my grandmother when I think of an Electrolux, but Can you imagine that at one point they had a tagline that says, "Nothing sucks like an Electrolux"? Whoever I would have loved to have been in the meeting room when that was, "Yes, let's sell it. That's what we're gonna go with." But that's what are you gonna do? Purdue, remember Frank Purdue? It was his tagline was, "It takes a tough man to make a tender chicken." Unfortunately, once again, for the Spanish, when it got translated into Spanish, it says, "It takes a sexually stimulated man to make a chicken affectionate." So, I guess that the, the problems that we had before Google Translate, right? So, we move on, and from there, Gerber, Gerber, who doesn't love that little baby? Unfortunately, when globalization started taking place and Gerber started marketing their product in Africa, in countries like Ethiopia, for example, where literacy rates were traditionally lower than in other parts of the world, what was traditional on those packaging in those parts of the world was that instead of words, they would show you pictures of what was on the inside. So when people saw the little picture of the baby on the outside of these jars, they were very uncomfortable and not sure what to do with it. The finger looking good. KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now, when they ventured into China, their finger looking good campaign translated into Chinese as "eat your fingers off." Again, not another good branding foray for them. And when Mercedes-Benz entered the Chinese market, they entered the name under the name Benzi. Unfortunately, in Chinese, that means rush to die. So again, not another signature campaign to go with. When Coca-Cola first made its foray into China, its name was sometimes translated as "bite the wax tadpole." So unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of people doing a lot of great research at that point. And remember, Pepsi had a slogan, "Pepsi brings you back to life." When it debuted in China, it was debuted as "China brings you back from the dead, from the grave." So who knew that Pepsi was such a strong drink? And once again, American Dairy Association replicated its "Got Milk" campaign. And when it got into the Spanish-speaking countries, it was translated as instead of "Got Milk," it was translated into "Are you lactating?" So once again, we have a disconnect. So this is something I was walking along and I saw this, and it was the William Olmsted Antozzi Office of Architecture. So WOA. So why is it written BO? I don't know. Just branding is one of those things that everything has to be consistent. Like the carpets have to match the drapes, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, so again, we don't understand this. Here's another interesting way of getting the branding across. During the pandemic, so I walked out of my office in Union Square, and there was this huge line. And being the curious person that I am, I went to the front of the line to find out what the line was all about. And this is what it was. They were giving out a joint of weed if you got a vaccination. So there you have it, folks. Another opportunity for creative branding. And as times change, branding changes and things come into need that didn't exist before. For example, the removery. So many people are having tattoo remorse that now there's a whole burgeoning business of removing this. So interesting. Now, here's something I want to talk about is that when you have a name like Gourmet Garage, which is a food store here in Manhattan, when you have the word gourmet in your name, don't give me brown lettuce. Okay. I was offended when I walked in and I saw that. And I did not buy a salad that day. This, by the way, I snapped this picture because if you look at the center one, the receipt book, which is misspelled, this was a sign on a printer's window, printing shop. So if the printing shop can't get the spelling correct, what, how can I be sure that they're going to get my job? And this, by the way, is a menu that is a huge menu. It's got to be standing about 5 feet tall. And this is down in the Stone Street area in Manhattan, very touristy area. All the things that you see with a little orange underline is a misspell. And if you go through the menu, there's got to be close to a dozen errors, spelling errors in this. My favorite is they have the word vinaigrette in here twice, and it is misspelled twice, and it is misspelled differently each time. So people, get it together, because if you can't get the spelling of your words, how am I gonna know that you're gonna get my food done properly? This was a Italian restaurant showing how they made their pasta, or that their pasta is homemade. But if you look at the pasta machine in the right corner of the table, that thing is all rusted. Who would wanna eat from that kind of a machine, or a restaurant like this serves pasta on a rusted machine? So really, you gotta be very careful about everything you're putting out to the world, because everything that you put out matters. Now, this, I have no idea what this is about, but if you are tripping and you need an area, then you know that there's one that exists. And one of the last things I wanted to talk about is word spacing in your advertising. Remember, all messaging has to be clear. It has to be readable. And if you're putting something out and the word spacing is off, then people are going to walk away with a really weird sense of what kind of food you're serving at your restaurant. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of my presentation.
Unlock the full potential of networking with the World Referral Network. Are you eager to connect with our esteemed guest speaker and delve deeper into the ever-expanding universe of the World Referral Network? Simply scan the QR code now and embark on a journey of endless opportunities. Join us at East Trade Wins, where we gather online every Tuesday from 8 to 9 in Eastern Standard Time. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, you're welcome to connect with us and other chapters across the World Referral Network. Seize the moment, register for free, and start exploring today. Fancy sharing your insights as a guest speaker? We're looking for you. Reach out to Wayne Pratt to ignite your speaking journey. Email him at motivateyou.ca or connect with Wayne on LinkedIn. Don't wait. Take action and be a part of a global community that's shaping the future of business networking.